Fish are thriving again in once contaminated water. People swim at beaches once covered with dead fish. Today, nearly 40 million people live in the Great Lakes region and depend upon its fresh water for drinking, washing, commerce, and recreation. But the freshwater seas still confront enormous challenges that call into question long-held assumptions about nature's role in our lives. The social, economic, and political stakes are high for the people in the region, the two nations they call home, and the entire world. From space, it's easy to see that Earth is mostly covered with water. Just 3% is fresh water, the essential resource for the nearly 7 billion people living on our planet. Most of Earth's fresh water is locked up in polar ice caps or is buried in underground aquifers. Less than 1% is accessible in lakes, rivers, and streams, and in more and more places, it's becoming increasingly scarce and valuable. The Great Lakes region is the ultimate exception, a freak of nature with a seemingly inexhaustible and invulnerable freshwater supply. Why is so much fresh water here? The story begins in outer space. The gravitational pulls of Jupiter and Venus distorted Earth's orbit around the Sun, launching an extended period of colder winters in which more snow fell than melted in summer, creating an ice age. Over the past 500,000 years, 6 ice ages occurred. The most recent began 70,000 years ago. A vast ice sheet expanded to the south, scraping away soft rock and sediment, and depositing enormous amounts of excavated material along the edges of the ice. Only hard rock substrate withstood the assault. The process reversed when the ice sheet began to melt, uncovering terrain that had been scraped clean and buried under tons of ice. The spores of lichens and moss took hold on the barren landscape, creating topsoil where plants and trees grew that eventually drew insects, birds, and animals. It took 5,500 years for the ice to melt to where Chicago is now. As it did, cascades of meltwater flowed to the sea, helping to carve the Mississippi River Valley. As the ice melted further, enormous basins excavated by the ice sheet were revealed. Over time, meltwater filled these excavations, forming glacial lakes covering thousands of square miles. The size and shape of these giant lakes changed as the ice sheet melted. Another factor also played a role. The enormous weight of the ice had compressed the ground beneath it. Once the ice melted, the terrain began rising, changing how water flowed in the region. The ice sheet melted from the Great Lakes region about 10,000 years ago, but climate change and the rebounding terrain continued to transform the lakes. Finally, 2,500 years ago, the Great Lakes became the natural wonders we know today, the foundations of a unique ecosystem where plants, animals, aquatic organisms, and people interact in an environment exceptionally rich in natural resources. Lake Superior is the largest freshwater lake in the world and the first in a series of enormous steps leading water down to the sea. It flows from the southeast corner of Lake Superior down the St. Mary's River into Lake Huron, 23 feet below. Lake Huron connects to Lake Michigan at the Straits of Mackinac, which separate the upper and lower peninsulas of Michigan. These two Great Lakes have the same surface elevation and are considered by many to be a single lake. From there, water flows down the St. Clair River to Lake St. Clair and the Detroit River, which feeds Lake Erie, the shallowest of the Great Lakes. Water flows north from Lake Erie into the Niagara River, where it cascades over the 200-foot cliffs of the American and Horseshoe Falls, known collectively as Niagara Falls. It then enters the fifth and final Great Lake, Ontario. From Lake Ontario, water flows into the St. Lawrence River for the final drop to the Gulf of St. Lawrence on the Atlantic Ocean.